Welcome back to Hoop and Helmets. We took a week off, but we're back. This is about episode 13-ish. And now since college football is over, we're on to college basketball. And usually we would give a little recap of the college football, but that happened such a long time ago. We're kind of over it. Now we're just into some college hoops. March is coming around the corner. It's a great time. And Brody, my question for you is, what is your favorite March Madness that you've ever watched?
Gotta be 2019. We made the Final Four. Come on.
2019's good, but did you really care about college basketball that much?
Of course. You can watch videos of me watching the games.
All right, so that's a valid answer.
I'll still remember that double dribble forever.
I would say 2023. That was by far the best in my opinion, because the highest amount of seeds average ever to the Final Four, with the 4 being the highest one. FAU, San Diego State, Final Four buzzer beater. FDU beats Purdue. So many other buzzer beaters. So many classic games like UCLA Gonzaga. I don't like Kansas State's run with Marquise Noel. It's just so hard to beat that March Madness in my opinion. But I mean, 2019 was great as well. So let's start it off here with, we're going to preview the games from this weekend. Starting off at 12 o'clock, we have Florida going to Tennessee after Florida just gave them an ass whooping the last time they played.
Yeah, and Tennessee, they started with Kentucky this week without Kentucky star players, but these are two teams that still haven't found their identity, I guess you could say. Like, are they really number 1 seeds? Are they 2 seeds? Are they 3 seeds? They don't know exactly what line they're on. Again, the SEC is by far the best conference in college basketball this year and all time, I guess you can say. But I just haven't seen enough yet from either of these teams to say that they're a surefire number 1 seed. Yes, they'll be in the tournament, but I guess in this game we can really tell how good these teams are.
Yeah, I agree. They're both great teams, obviously. I would say Florida's the better team right now. We saw what they did to Tennessee last time. But again, this time Tennessee's home. I honestly see Tennessee possibly winning this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all. They're coming off a few tough losses, especially the one to Auburn last weekend. A very close game that came down to the wire, and they were at Auburn too. So yeah, the SEC is just wild this year with, you keep naming names, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee. It's just on and on and on. Even Vanderbilt's really good this year. So you never know what you're getting with that conference. And come conference championship week, it's not really going to be too much interest in the bubble, because almost all the teams are going to be in. But the amount of top 25 matchups we'll even get in the first round is going to be insane.
Yeah, but talking about keys in this game, I think Tennessee, they have to shoot the ball well. I mean, Jordan Gainey, Zakai Ziegler. Ziegler against us, that was probably one of his best games of his collegiate career. And then what did he have? He was 3 for 15 the other night. Jordan Gainey, he's been cold. Chaz Lanier, he's got to step it up too. Like Rick Barnes says, if you're not going to shoot it like you're getting paid to, you're not going to play.
Yeah.
They say Igor Milicic can stretch it out. Again, he's not shooting well from 3. So if Tennessee can get out of that shooting slump in this one, I think they can beat Florida.
I agree. I think that Florida is a great team. Obviously, they have Will Richard. They have Walter Clayton Jr. They got Elijah Martin from the FAU run in 2023, like I was just talking about. And then they also have some big men who can play. And they're getting their big men back from last season who got injured against Auburn. So, yeah, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And they're probably a top 3 team in the SEC. And the SEC is stacked, so they're a great team. But I think this is Tennessee's time, and they're going to Tennessee. So I would pick Tennessee to win the game right now. But, considering what Florida did to last time, it's very tough to pick Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee, too. I just don't think they're going to lose 3 in a row, really.
Yeah, and in our next game, we have another SEC matchup, and we're going to have Auburn traveling to Ole Miss. And many people are thinking this is a trap game because it's at Ole Miss, a great team. Auburn hasn't lost an SEC game yet. What are your takes on this one?
Yeah, right. We have 12, 13 quad 1 wins now. That's really remarkable. Another quad 1 opportunity in Ole Miss. They've been saying trap game for a while now. I guess you could say LSU was even a trap game. Georgia was a trap game. And yet we've managed to crawl out and sometimes beat these teams by 20. I mean, you just can't find anywhere on our roster that is a hole. That's the thing right now. Janai Broom, he's back. Without him, we were perfect. Now with him back, he's looking like the Wooden Award winner again, and he's still not 100% healthy.
Yeah, if I were to say there's one hole on your team, it's maybe that one random off night you'll have in 15 nights, because there isn't really a hole, like you just said. And for you guys, these games don't even matter that much. Really, for you, you just want to be playing your best ball when it comes to March. So you have nothing to worry about right now. You're pretty much going to be a 1 seed, like, no matter what, unless you completely fall apart. It's just, like, one bad game in March Madness, and you're done. Like, it's not double elimination. You're done there. So it will be more interesting to talk about that then. But for now, Auburn, they don't really have any pressure on them at all. They've just been beating everyone. So I don't see them losing at Ole Miss. I just think Auburn's going to win by another 12 points.
Yeah, and you talk about, like, having one bad game in March, and that's what I really look to this team this year, because I know they're going to be a 1 seed. I think they could still drop to a 2 seed, barring something crazy happens. But what I've been wanting to see is, if you're up 8, if you're up 10, can you extend that lead late with 5 minutes left against a really good team? Can you beat a team like they beat Tennessee when you're shooting below 40% from the field? And they did. So they're checking all the boxes. And then Ole Miss, they have a huge hype problem when it comes to Auburn. We're a big team. They're starting guards under 6'3". Denver Jones is our smallest player in the starting lineup. He's 6'4". So that's going to come into battle here.
I do have one question. Does JP Pegues even play for you guys? I haven't heard of him all year.
He came into our last game in the first half. I know, I was shocked.
Wait. How many minutes does he get?
Like, oh no, he doesn't play.
That's crazy.
I know, it's crazy.
He was projected to be on your starting lineup, but Tahad's just been so good.
And he averaged 20 points per game for 3 years at Furman.
And
he had that buzzer beater against Virginia.
Yeah, and wait, that Virginia buzzer beater, that was in 2023 as well. I'm telling you.
Everything comes back.
But, like, Ole Miss, they have Sean Padula from Virginia Tech. I'm familiar with his game because Clemson always struggles against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech and NC State are the two teams. I mean, not NC State. We're good against NC State. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. They're not good, but for some reason we always randomly struggle against them. And I remember J.P. Pegues and another player who's now in the SEC, Tyler Nickel on Vanderbilt, both dropped 20 on us last year. And Sean Padula, he's a shooter, but he's proved more than just shooting the ball this year too. So he could be a little bit to handle for you guys, but you guys are just too talented. I think you guys are going to win this game, maybe like 84-72 or something.
I'd like to see us pull away and win by 20 in this one, but that might not happen. Chris Beard's a good coach. So if we win, great. Again, if we lose, it doesn't really affect us, but I don't want to lose.
Yeah. So our next game on schedule, it's at 4 o'clock. And this time, it's Kansas traveling to Baylor. And this is a very interesting matchup for me because Baylor has not been good at all recently. They're down to like a 9 seed right now. 2 more losses, they could be right on that bubble. They were preseason number 8. VJ Edgecombe looked better, but they just haven't really gotten that much performance out of guys other than VJ Edgecombe, Norchad Omier, and Jeremy Roach. They can't find other guys who can really score for them, and they've been struggling. But this is a Kansas team who's coming off a very tough loss to Houston. I don't even know how they lost that game. They were up by 6 with like 5 seconds, so they're looking for blood. But Baylor, they need to win badly, and they're at their home stadium, so they're going to try to pull off the upset here.
Yeah, and Baylor's favored in this one. And if you remember when they had the buzzer beater against St. John's, if you could have told me then that they'd be a 9 seed now, I would not have believed you. Because they looked like a top team in the tournament. I thought they were going to go to the Sweet 16 Elite 8 radius, and they have not had a good performance since. They just haven't. And then Kansas, they were the preseason number 1. I thought their talent was unbelievable. I didn't know how they were going to lose a game.
Yeah.
And they haven't even impressed.
Yeah, like coming at the beginning of the year, you would have thought this is going to be like a primetime top 5 matchup. It really isn't. It's still going to be a great matchup, and ESPN actually has this rated as the top game of the week. So that just tells you how good and important matchup it is. But if Jeremy Roach didn't hit that buzzer beater against St. John's, which gave them a quad 1 win, we could be talking about Baylor maybe being one of the last teams in the tournament right now, which is crazy to think about. And in our next game, we have another Big 12 matchup. This is a great game. Texas Tech, they're very high in KenPom, the metrics, the net ratings. They're high everywhere. They've been playing pretty good recently. They've had a couple close losses. The big one to Iowa State where they lost by 1 on a buzzer beater. And they've been pretty good, but they're traveling to Houston, who got their first big win of the season. What do you see in this game?
Yeah, you talk about the metrics. Houston, they are number 1 in KenPom now. They actually passed us by very small margin. And again, you talk about efficiency. Houston, this is one of the top teams in KenPom of all time. They don't really have the talent. I mean, you look at their team front to back, and you'd be like, how is this team really a top 5 team? Well, they've put it together. Kelvin Sampson, he's gotten it done. And JoJo Tugler, if you look at the metrics, he's the top defender in the country. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for Texas Tech in the paint in this one.
Yeah, and especially since it's at Houston. Texas Tech, they've gotten a great environment in their home court. I think if this was at Texas Tech, I would pick them. But since it's at Houston, Houston's going to get a bit of a hot streak going. I'm going to pick Houston. But for me, the one player I would look out for, Emmanuel Sharp, has just been his improvement from earlier in his Houston career to now is insane. He's knocking down threes. He's getting to the paint. He's facilitating. He's doing everything for them, and they don't have Jamal Shed anymore. So him and LJ Cryer, they're stepping up big time. They got Jawan Roberts went crazy against Kansas. So they're looking dangerous right now. Texas Tech's a good team, but I'm going to have to pick Houston in this one.
I'm going to pick Houston too, and my guy to look out for is definitely going to be Francis in the paint. I mean, you know Roberts, you know Tugler, but again, these guys have tended to get into foul trouble over the years, especially in big games. So when you need that third big to come in, how can Francis really respond?
Yeah, I agree. And then in our next game, obviously the classic, by far the best rivalry in all of college basketball. You look at the most expensive games to go to this week. Number 2 is $100. Number 1, almost $2,000. North Carolina at Duke. And I understand that. I went to Duke Stadium a couple years ago, and when they played Florida State, and that was such an electric environment, but this is 10 times ramped up. North Carolina coming to town. I don't care what you say. No, it's at Duke. They're a better team. I said this in college football. It's a rivalry game. I would not be surprised if this comes down to the last few possessions. And that's why I'd be picking North Carolina to cover the spread. But just how the seasons went for them all year, I can't really pick against Duke and Cooper Flagg, Tyrese Proctor. They got veterans on their team. They got young talent. It's not just all young talent this year for Duke. This is why I think they could be better than some of the years in the past.
Yeah, and I don't think this rivalry is dead because Bill Belichick, he was doing something this week. I'm not quite sure what it was. You know what it was?
No.
He was doing something where he was giving out pizzas, I think, to North Carolina fans that were waiting and camping out for the game or something.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get into Cameron Indoor. That's going to be tough to do.
Yeah.
I mean, these two teams are very close together. Hubert Davis definitely wants to win this game. But then again, Duke, they've been impossible to beat this year, especially at home. Historically, at Cameron Indoor, they never lose. I think you're looking at a great game for Cooper Flagg, but R.J. Davis, this is really his game.
Yeah.
His final year at North Carolina, how well can you play against your rival on the road?
Yeah, and I think this is a huge game for R.J. Davis. In North Carolina, obviously, the 4 guards, Ellie Cadeau, R.J. Davis, Ian Jackson, and Seth Trimble, they've all been great all year. But their problem is they don't have a big man. And that's really where I think Duke can exploit them, especially at home with Malawach, Flagg. They got Malik Brown this year, the Syracuse transfer coming off the bench. That's Duke's huge advantage over North Carolina in this game. And I'm telling you right now, if North Carolina wants to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to knock down a lot of threes. I think R.J. Davis, Cadeau, Trimble, Jackson, all these guys, they've got to be making threes this game. They can't be missing their shots or else they're not going to beat Duke. And I'll be picking Duke to win, but I do think Carolina might cover the spread.
Yeah, you bring up that kind of rebound battle, and that's how we beat them. And we're a smaller team than Duke. We dominated them on the glass. Duke's a bigger team than us. I think they're just going to dominate North Carolina on the glass. Right? They're going to have to knock down some threes. North Carolina win this one. Duke's got too much firepower. I think they're going to win by over 10.
Yeah, I think you could be right about that. But if North Carolina could get this win, which it's gonna be real tough. But if they can, they move themselves from maybe out of the tournament. They're right smack on the bubble right now.
I think they're out right now.
We haven't really talked about the bubble too much today, but they're probably not in. They shouldn't be in. They got 9 losses. But if they win at Duke, they're all the way up to an 8 or a 9 seed. So this is a huge opportunity for them. And it's going to be one of the last opportunities they have all year, considering the ACC is not that strong of a conference. So teams like North Carolina, Wake Forest, SMU, even Pitt, they can't let these opportunities go to waste. They're going to have to find a win like this. And Wake Forest is another great example. We won't get into their game, but they have a huge game versus Pitt. They need to win this. They can't drop this. They're at home, and they need a big win. Pitt's pretty high in the net, and they only have one quad one win right now. And we saw the same thing with them last year. That's why they didn't make the tournament. They had one quad win until March last year. And like our friend Charlie was saying, they should have gotten in. You can't get in with only one quad win. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to need to find ways to win some of these games if they want to make the tournament.
Yeah, you're spot on there. And I'm going to move us over to the next game, UConn Marquette. And another team that's been dropping kind of the Baylor vibes, UConn. They've drifted down to, I think, a 7 or an 8 seed.
Yeah.
They've really dropped a lot in the last few months.
Yeah, UConn's definitely not as good as the last two national title teams. That's very easy to see. But I don't think you guys could go too crazy yet. You have to realize UConn's without their best player, Liam McNeely, in all these games. He is questionable to come back against Marquette. If he doesn't, it's at Marquette. I don't see UConn winning this game, really. But I'm not as high on Marquette as your average person, I think. I think St. John's is actually the better team than Marquette is. Marquette's had a bunch of really close games like DePaul and Georgetown. I think that it's possible I think I might actually be picking UConn right now if they do have McNeely. It's still a great match of 8 o'clock on Fox right after the North Carolina game. Who isn't going to watch it? But I just don't really see UConn getting it done without McNeely, so I will pick Marquette. But both these teams, they're the two top teams right now in the Big East, but just wait till St. John's comes in. They'll get that number 1 seed.
Yeah, I feel like this is a classic Big East game where UConn could definitely beat Marquette.
Yeah.
And they could be beating them at halftime. But then again, I'm pretty high on this Marquette team, even though they're not high in the metrics. You've got good three-point shooters all around. Stevie Mitchell's really come onto the scene as a top defender.
Yeah.
And then if you need a shot down the stretch, you know exactly who the ball is going to, and Cam Jones. So I'm going to take Marquette.
Yeah, and if David Joplin, he might be the key to this game. If he's knocking down threes, it's going to be very tough for UConn to win. But he's been struggling this year, so we'll see what happens. And in our next matchup, we have Coach Cal returning to Rupp Arena. This is such a great week. We have Indiana, Purdue tonight. We got many rivalries, North Carolina, Duke. We're going to have a game even after this one that's going to be exciting. We have Marquette, UConn, even Tennessee, Florida, top 10 matchup at 12 o'clock. And in this one, Coach Cal, the Kentucky fans, it's going to be very interesting to see. Will they be welcoming? Or I don't even know.
What do you got? You got booing or cheering?
I think they're
got booing.
I think they're going to be more booing, but I think there's going to be some part of the game, like a timeout or something, that they might give a little cheer to him and they'll show something on the board. But every time the game is in action, there'll be booing for sure. And because Coach Cal, it's not like he was a great coach for them, really. He brought a national championship, but a lot of busts in the tournament. And talking about this game more, Arkansas has been terrible all year. Maybe Coach Cal could bring some magic in, but they don't have Boogie Fland. It's going to be very tough to pick Arkansas in this game.
Yeah, I think Coach Pope, the Kentucky boy, he's been great this year for them, and Kentucky's got a great group of transfers. Cal brought all of his guys over from Kentucky, and it clearly hasn't worked. This Arkansas team, even without Boogie Fland, they've been terrible. There's no other way to put it. So for that reason, I'm going to take Kentucky.
I think Arkansas might they could come out with some fire. I could see Arkansas maybe even taking a lead early in this game, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I got Kentucky scoring like 87 points, maybe winning like 87-72, something like that. I think Kentucky will win as well. And then finally, this is one of my favorite matchups we get to watch all year. It's a shame that it's at 11 p.m. Eastern time, but it's still going to be a great matchup. We have Gonzaga versus St. Mary's. Going to St. Mary's as well. St. Mary's, they've kind of owned Gonzaga the last year and a half, actually, in this conference. And they always seem to either keep it close or maybe even beat the Zags. And the Zags have been very underwhelming this year, considering they are preseason top 10, returning everybody. They've lost a couple bad games, including one to Santa Clara, where they let up 13 threes in the second half. How does that even happen?
Yeah, right. These are two teams in the West Coast Conference that typically make it every year. But St. Mary's has really taken the jump this year, and they've ascended ahead of Gonzaga, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Sometimes they win the regular season. Gonzaga still gets that top 4 seed. But this year, I think it's going to be St. Mary's that gets the top seed. There was a lot of questions. Who's going to step up without Mahaney? Well, there's been guys stepping up for this St. Mary's team, and they've really taken control of this West Coast Conference.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested to see what St. Mary's can do in March, because they always seem to get that 5 seed. It's happened, I think, like 3 of the last 4 years they've gotten a 5 or 6 seed. But they can never actually win games when it comes to March, and people are saying their defense is going to get them. People had them beating Alabama and stuff in the second round last year. Well, that will be very intriguing to see, and I think this Gonzaga game is going to tell a big part of this story. If they can beat Gonzaga tonight, I might start thinking they're actually a legit team that can maybe make a run this year. But if Gonzaga wins, I could maybe start thinking good, like classic old St. Mary's. But no matter what, it's going to be a great game. I think maybe if I had to make a game prediction, St. Mary's 72-71 or something like that.
I feel like this is a game where Graham Ike really comes out again and shows why he's one of the top players in college basketball, because he's been pretty underwhelming this year. So for that reason, I'm going to actually take the Zags in a close one.
Yeah, so before we go, we're going to give you guys a quick little rundown. Like, what are you thinking right now with some teams that you're high on for March, some teams that you're low on, some teams that you think if they can squeak in the tournament that are on the bubble could make a run, some teams you think might fall out of the tournament, some teams that you think are like overseeded or underseeded right now? Let's just give some takes.
Yeah, so I've got two teams that I think are sleepers to make the Final Four as of right now. And we'll start it off first with Arizona, right? They've got a lot of talent. And I'm talking about teams that are in the 15 to 20th best team radius. So if you're looking at them to make the Final Four, they'd probably be around like the 13th choice. So I'd say it's a bit of an underdog here when you're talking about these spots. Arizona, they've got a lot of talent. They were terrible in the non-conference. But if you look at the Big 12 play, they're second. They're 9-1 in Big 12 play. Caleb Love had that big shot earlier this week. People talk about the shot. How about the dominance in overtime over Iowa State, right? They just put them away.
Insane.
This Arizona team is absolutely loaded with talent. They have experience in the tournament. You look at Townsend from Oakland last year. He knows how to win a tournament.
Yeah.
Tommy Lloyd, he's a great coach. And I like this Arizona team to advance potentially to the Final Four.
Yeah, I kind of rooting for Arizona this year. Tommy Lloyd, since leaving Gonzaga, has not had any success in the tournament. Losing to Princeton, then losing to my Clemson Tigers in the Sweet 16 last year. They were favored by like double digits in that game. And Caleb Love, an absolute disaster class, like 0 for 11 for 3 in that game. But he's looking to get back to his old form right now. And I agree with Brody, actually. I'm going to start off. I'm going to take a couple teams here, a couple from each conference. From the Big East, I have St. John's. I think they're very iffy. They could get upset. I could see them getting upset to like a 12 seed in the first round. But if they're making their free throws, they don't even have to make their threes. They could make a run for chance of the Final Four. Their defense, 4th-ranked defense in the country right now. Rebounding, they're top 10 in rebounding. You got to box these guys out, or else you're not getting that defensive rebound. Kadari Richmond is starting to play better, and they don't even have Davion Smith right now, who's their starting point guard. Once they get him back, now Simeon Wilcher's gotten more experience. They're just a great team overall. They have young talent and experience, kind of like Duke. I could see them making a run. From the Big Ten, Maryland, I don't have too much on them, but I know that's one of Brody's teams. Brody will talk about Maryland. But then I'm going to take two teams from the ACC. Louisville, they are so slept on right now. They've been winning crazy. Pat Kelsey believes this team's going to win the national championship, and I don't even think he's that far off. I could see this team definitely making the Final Four. Rain Smith's making everything. Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Williams, everyone's been going crazy for them. I think that Clemson, their team is so darn similar to last year. They're exact carbon copies, so therefore they could make the Elite Eight again. And they're kind of getting slept on right now. Honestly, they're 18-4. I don't know why people don't have them higher in the rankings. They have a win against Kentucky and stuff. And from the Big 12, I would say Arizona, like Brody, for pretty much the exact same reasons. And then I'm pretty high on this Texas Tech team. Like I said earlier, they're very high in all of the metrics. And we saw them make the finals a couple years back. And now Chris Beard, he's at a different college. He's at Ole Miss, actually. But still, they have experience. They have 3 guys averaging over 16 points a game. I could definitely see them getting it done too.
Yeah, so let me touch on Maryland a bit because they're my second team to make the Final Four. Right? What's your key points in March? Top 20 in offensive and defensive efficiency? Check the box. Do you have veteran guards? And they do. You talk about Jacoby Gillespie. He's been in the spots before, especially at Belmont last year. Selton Miguel. He was at Kansas State for 2 years. He really brought Jerome Tang. People don't talk about him. And then at South Florida, he was the best 6th man probably in the country last year when he was averaging 14 points per game. They have Julian Reese. People forget about this. 2 years ago in the tournament, I think he had 30 in his freshman game. And then you got to touch on the best. I think he's the best center in the country, honestly. I don't classify Broome as a center. He's a top freshman. Derek Queen from Montverde. He's averaging 15 and 10, and he's destroying these Big Ten teams. Maryland's got a favorable schedule to close out the year. They just beat Wisconsin, and I really think they can make a run at the Final Four, especially because their coach, Kevin Willard, he believes they can get it done too.
Yeah, wait, did Kevin Lillard used to be the coach at Seton Hall or
Yes,
something?
he did. For
I remember him actually back when they had Miles Powell. I used to watch Seton Hall a lot. And one other thing that I would like to say real quick is, shit, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, a lot of people have been talking about Ohio State, which I think that's actually a pretty good take. When you look at their schedule, it is so inconsistent. They have 8 losses right now, yet people are still considering them easily in the tournament. They have stacked up some crazy good wins, and they've also blowed a couple of teams out. They just beat Penn State by like 30 last night. So they've been playing some great ball, and you do not want to be playing them if you're a 6 seed. Trust me, they can make a run. And I see teams. I've even seen like St. John. Some people have them as like a 9 seed. No 1 seed wants to play them in the second round. Like these are some teams that I think are underseeded that they could definitely make a run from that 11 seed line, like we've seen so many times with UCLA, Loyola Chicago. That 11 seed line seems like a very popular spot to make a run, because like you barely make the tournament. That means you're the underdog. You got nothing to lose. Like those 11 seeds, they're dangerous.
What about an 11 seed mid-major? I've been high on them all year. UC Irvine, the Anteaters. From the beginning of the year, I always like to check on Ken Palm, through like the first 2-3 weeks of the season. What mid-majors are high in efficiency? Because these are teams that are typically playing top teams in the country. UC Irvine happen to be top 20 in defense of efficiency, and they're still top 20 in defensive efficiency. UC San Diego's even in consideration for an at-large too. So you talk about these two teams, well, when they played against each other, UC Irvine won. If UC Irvine keeps this up, they'll definitely be a 10 seed.
Yeah, I agree. UC Irvine is a good team, but that's actually not the team I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at Arkansas State, a bit of an under-the-radar team. We saw them go into Alabama and almost beat them earlier this year. And then later this year, they lost by 2 to Louisville, who's another great team. And I can't remember off the top of my head who the team they beat was, but I know they went into a Power 5 team who's in the tournament right now and upset Memphis. They beat Memphis. Okay. And Memphis is a team, like, that's not even surprising. Memphis is the weirdest team I've ever watched. They'll go in non-conference, they'll take down 3 top 10 teams, and then the first week of conference play, we'll see them lose to Arkansas State, Utah, and South Florida or something like that. That's classic Memphis for you right there. So right now they're like projected to 5 seed, but Memphis fans know they could still even miss the tournament. So it's not that crazy of a win, but it's still a great win in Memphis is like a 4 seed in people's brackets right now. So Arkansas State, they get like a 13 seed. I could maybe be picking them for my upset pick. It's a bit early right now, but they're definitely on my radar.
How about McNeese? People really liked them last year. This year they dropped 3 games early. Well, since then they've been undefeated in conference play once again. Will Wade, he's getting it done. He basically returned the same team they had last year. Basically nobody went to the portal, and that's rare for a school that only had 4 losses last year. Then you look at them this year, I think they can be dangerous in the tournament.
Yeah, it's really tough for me to think about this team because they don't really play anyone good. Their conference isn't good. And I was high on them last year, and like half of my brackets I had them beating Gonzaga in the first round. That did not go well at all.
Smashed.
So it's very because they don't really have any challenges before March Madness, so it's kind of like hit or miss for them. So I probably won't be picking them to upset people. I wouldn't be surprised if they got like a 12-5 upset, but as of now, I would not be picking them. But so one last question. What bubble teams do you think could make a run, and what bubble teams do you think are going to end up getting left out of the tournament, maybe because of like metrics or lack of quad 1 wins, or maybe just like falling apart down the stretch here?
Yeah, you talk about the bubble. I actually think Wake Forest can slide into the field, right? You talk about their big game against Pitt, and this is a team that's pretty high when it comes to metrics. You look at strength of record, they're higher than teams like North Carolina that are in the tournament right now. So I'm not sure why this Wake Forest team is really kept out. I understand the quad 1 argument. So this is why these games are huge for Wake Forest. You look at the end of their schedule, though. They don't play too many top teams in the ACC. If you win this game against Pitt and you can win a few games in a row, I mean, that's kind of all they need.
For Wake Forest right now, obviously they play at Duke. If they could win that would be huge. I don't think they're going to. They got 2 huge games. This week versus Pitt is a humongous game. And then a couple weeks down the road, I think this game is going to be so big at SMU. Like, I'm looking at the ACC right now. This conference, they don't have too many teams in tournament contention, but they might have the most teams on the bubble. They have 4 teams right now currently on that last 4 into first 4 outline in SMU, Pitt, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. Right now, Pitt and North Carolina, ESPN has in, and SMU and Wake Forest ESPN has out. I don't really see how you can have North Carolina in over Wake Forest, so it doesn't really make sense. Wake Forest beat North Carolina, and North Carolina has many more losses. I understand like the metrics, the quad one wins, all that stuff. I agree. Pitt should be in. SMU, they're very interesting. They play a good team. They've been losing by like 15-20. They play a decent to bad team. They're winning by like 40. This kind of reminds me a lot of SMU football when I really think about it. And I haven't really watched them enough, or I haven't watched them at all this year. So it's going to be, I'm kind of excited. Clemson plays them in a couple of weeks too, so I'm looking forward to that game. But I'm pretty intrigued of what SMU can do here. I think Pitt will make it, but those last three teams, I don't really know who's getting in and who's getting out.
Yeah, and you talk about these games, and when the committee looks at these ACC teams, what's the first thing they're going to look at? When they played against each other.
Yeah.
That's what they should look at. So those wins, I'd say, those games are way more important than when they play Duke, because in these games for bubble teams, when they play at a top team, they host a top team, if you win, great. You jump a seed line. You could jump 2 seed lines. If you lose, nothing really happens.
Yep.
The bubble games, if you win, you have control over that team.
Exactly. That's why these two games for Wake Forest are huge. They already took down North Carolina. Now they got Pitt and SMU. If they can win both of those games and then don't fall apart to these other teams, there's really no reason they shouldn't be in the tournament. So if you're a Wake Forest fan, you shouldn't be mad about anything. You still control your own destiny. So just wait till that happens. If we look at some other conferences, we obviously have the Big 12. They have a couple of bubble teams like BYU, Arizona State. Arizona State's got like 10 losses. I understand like Bobby Hurley's the coach. They have some decent wins. But I don't really understand how they're there right now. But
Jaden Quintus is injured too, their top freshman.
Yeah, exactly. And the SEC, they don't really have too many bubble teams because they're so good. And the Big East right now, the one other team I want to talk about is Xavier. And Xavier's very interesting. I think Xavier is a great team. They just beat UConn and Marquette and then took St. John's to overtime at St. John's. And they were up by like 20 in that game too. Xavier started off the year horrendously, losing to some bad opponents. They started off the year like 7-6. But since then, they've been only 2 losses in Big East play, and they've been beating like everybody, and now they're that first team out right now, according to ESPN. And I think Xavier's going to find themselves in the tournament, actually. I think Xavier, if you go Big East, I think they're going to get 5 teams in. It's going to be UConn, Marquette, St. John's, Xavier, and Creighton. And Creighton has actually been very good, even without Pop Isaacs. And then if you want to throw like Villanova, they still have somewhat of a chance, but they're probably not going to get in unless they make some crazy run. Xavier's the main team to touch on in the Big East.
Yeah, Ryan Conwell is one of my favorite guards in the country.
Yeah,
so
he's insane.
when it comes down the stretch, I always look to veteran guards, and he's exactly who I want. I think he's one of the top guards in the Big East, one of the top guards in the country.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan Conwell's been a bucket this year. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Nope.
All right, so that's going to wrap up episode 13 of Hoop and Helmets. I'll see you guys next week. We'll give you maybe a little recap of the games, preview some more games, talk more about March Madness and what's coming up in college basketball. And even when we go on later, we might talk about some college football transfer portal stuff per chance. And we'll see you guys next week.